Jan. We bring together experts from science, politics, and spirituality to discuss and explore solutions for the unfolding climate crisis. I'm Golo Pilz, and I will be the moderator for tonight's session. And we will talk about spirituality and science in climate solution. It's day 3 at the moment in the COP29, and at the moment the Leaders Summit is going on, and heads of state from around the world making their case for more funding to tackle the climate change. This COP is also dubbed the Finance COP, and the world's top multilateral banks pledged to ramp up their funding to $120 billion per year. But if we see that the damage already is much higher, it's not that much. Meanwhile, latest science reports say that global warming and its impact are unfolding much faster than expected. For example, methane emissions have risen at the highest since ever on record. Countries gave also the go-ahead for carbon credit quality standards, which are critical for the UN global carbon market that would fund green projects. I'm glad to have 2 experts with me to shed more light on these rather complicated issues. I have with me Dr. Lucy Wallace. You are the Director of Global Relation at EIT Food, the world's largest food community. You coordinate the action on the Food Hub, and you are as well the co-founder of Regan House, a space for evolutionary conversations about regenerative food systems. Welcome, Lucy.
Thank you.
And I have with me Maureen Goodman. You are the Program Director for the Brahma Kumaris in the United Kingdom, and you have been to several climate conferences and have a deep interest in the ethical dimensions of climate change. Since long, you also have been active in the interreligious dialogue and have represented the Brahma Kumaris on many occasions. So welcome, Maureen.
Thank you.
Lucy, I come with my first question. On your webpage is written, EIT Food accelerates innovation to build a future fit food system that produces healthy and sustainable food for us all. Please tell us in a nutshell more about your activity.
So we are an EU-funded innovation agency which is focused on food. So the EIT, the European Institute of Innovation and Technology, is a way that the European Union funds innovation, and we deal with food and the challenges around food systems. So we are a knowledge innovation community, so we have members from across the whole food value system, and we work with them to accelerate innovation and support innovation right from conception, right through from startup, scale up, in industry and then beyond and to the market. And we also work with consumers as well.
All right. Are you advocating, for example, a vegan diet or vegetarian diet?
We're looking at healthy, sustainable, resilient food systems, and those food systems are diverse. So we're looking at not necessarily a vegan diet or a vegetarian diet, but we're looking at ways of making diets more healthy and more sustainable. Sometimes that includes reducing the amount of meat consumption. So we're looking at that diversity of different solutions that you might put into place. Our focus is currently on Europe because we're an EU-funded agency. However, my role is looking at sort of how we work within the more global food system, because you can't put a food system in a small box of Europe.
So you are going to farmers, for example, and sort of advise them what is the most suitable crop, also in terms of climate change, future. What's the ideal crop for changing climate?
Well, we work with the system to then work with farmers. So we don't necessarily work directly with farmers, but we work with organisations that do. And some of our activities might include education programmes, which farmers get involved in, but also that other food systems actors get involved in as well. So we have a large education team. We also have a team which work with startups and scale-ups around entrepreneurship. And then we also work with consumers as well. So we work with everybody across the whole food system, not just one part. And I think that's the real important part of what we do, is that we take the system as a whole and we enable collaboration between those different actors.
So you look also at the carbon footprint of the whole system then?
Carbon footprint, and we talk a lot about, because we're at COP, you'll be hearing a lot about carbon. But actually, it's not just carbon we need to look at when we're looking at net zero. We also need to look at other things as well. We need to look at things like water. We need to think about biodiversity. And this year, there are 3 Rio conventions. So we've just had the biodiversity COP in Cali. We've got the UNFCCC COP, so the climate COP here in Baku in Azerbaijan. And then next month, there's a desertification COP in Riyadh. And so looking at all of those things is very important. Carbon is just one element of that. It's a very important element, but it's not the only thing that we need to be looking at when we try to make the food system more sustainable or more regenerative.
That sounds very interesting. By the way, our Maureen was just at the UN Biodiversity Conference in Cali, and Sonia, I think, is going to the desertification conference very soon.
Yes.
Very interesting. Maureen, our topic today is to bring science and spirituality close for climate solutions. Often it seems that science is not talking to spirituality and spirituality is not talking to science. They're not talking to each other. What has to happen to bridge the gap?
Thank you. Well, you say that they're not talking to each other. I do think that a few things are happening which are showing that they're coming a little closer together. And I think I spoke of this the other evening, that at the Biodiversity COP, when the group of, we're part of the Coalition of Faiths for Biodiversity, which you'll be aware of, and when the faith representatives were meeting the executive secretary, we talked about the voice of science and the voice of faith actually being of equal importance in solving all of the different crises, aspects of the environmental crises. And it was very interesting what she said. She said that now we realize that the voice of science and the voice of faith are not contradictory. And I thought that that was a very big statement for her to make.
That's very interesting indeed.
Which indicates a kind of listening and coming together. I know that a lot more needs to happen. Generally, if you look back in history, science and religion were always together. And then over the centuries, they split up. And science became very mechanistic and very, specialized. And even within science, you've got so many specialisms that also don't connect. But you do now, over quite a few decades, have scientists who've begun to study consciousness. And I think that's a very interesting development, because it means that, again, there's a coming together and a recognition of how one impacts the other. We don't live in separate worlds. Science and technology have brought us a huge amount of progress, which is great. But we don't just live in that world. We live in a world of awareness, of consciousness, of thoughts and feelings, and so there has to be a connection between the two. And so I think the more dialogue there is, the more listening there is, then one will be able to see the benefit of the other. Last year at COP28, no, actually it was at the pre-COP Faith Summit, person from, I think it's Harvard, and she was talking about science and how science has taken us forward. And then she looked at the audience and asked, but where are the values? And so this is another way in which science and silence, if you like, or science and spirituality need to come together. And at least it's being spoken of, which indicates, I think, we're on the journey.
So we're seeing a process where slowly, this gap is being bridged, and hopefully science will get guidance from religion, and religion will get guidance from science, and they come together for a better future.
One will inform the other.
Thanks very much. Lucy, you were also at the COP, and I was today there and almost lost orientation. We're 30,000, 40,000 people sometimes in the venue. It gets very crowded, and hundreds of programs are going on per day, and sometimes it's like an information overload. It's like So much stuff is going on. How you stay sane inside the COP and how you navigate and get also impact with your ideas. What's your strategy?
Well, I think it's, there's a lot of people, and there's a lot of people there for a good reason. People are there because they care, and they care about the planet, and they care about what's happening, and they want to have a positive impact. I think it becomes an issue when we forget that. It becomes an issue when we just get caught up in the process, and we get caught up in the negotiations or caught up in going from event to event to event. And I agree, it's incredibly hard to navigate all of that. So what we try and do, and what we're doing in the Action on Food Hub, which is a space that my team coordinates, in collaboration with some other organisations, we hold daily meditations first thing in the morning. And we have that grounding, which I think is incredibly important. And what I've found on a personal level is having those pauses, and those pauses to ground you at the start of the day, maybe at other points in the day as well, is incredibly important at reminding you why you're there, because it's easy to lose your way, it's easy to forget. And it's not that we need to forget all of the other stuff and, not concentrate on the important parts of why we're there, which is impacting on policy and and having that, enabling the food system to have a say and to be there and to guide policy, but to also connect in with the other sectors that are there as well. But we just need that reminder of why we're there. Even just a couple of moments of going back to your breath is incredibly powerful. And it's helpful, and it's surprising the amount of people that see that as a positive thing, but they forget in the moment, because it's rushing about, it's running from meeting to meeting or session to session. There are huge crowds of people, and it is very, very hard to forget. So we need that reminder, and that for me is incredibly helpful, but it's also helpful, I think, for a lot of other people.
So being aware, the overall purpose of us being there at the COP to find a solution for climate. And I would say all of the people have good intentions there. They really all want to help planet Earth.
I think the majority, yes.
Yeah. Let's hope. Maureen, science is quite clear about the climate crisis. I mean, it's like written since 30 years or so, has been predicted, and now the bad stuff is happening. And they're also quite clear what has to be done, actually. Nowadays, even research institutes, they give pathways, they give instruction of what has to be done, what politics has to do. They're pretty clear. Alas, we humans, we don't follow their advice. Somehow we don't listen. Big question is, what stops us? Is it bad karma or ignorance, or is it a blockage, or whatever stops us to follow that what we understand? How a spiritual mindset can overcome that blockage?
No, it is a very crucial question, actually, because if we're going to mitigate against the crisis, then we need a change in lifestyle, a change in mindset. And I loved very much, it's a practice that many of us have too, about taking pauses and so on. But why? I wouldn't say bad karma or even ignorance, actually, because it's there staring us in the face. But there's a kind of stubbornness, and an unwillingness to change. And I think because that involves a little bit of sacrifice, involves a little bit of stepping into the unknown, and that's scary for people. And also there's, all the sort of opinions of society. And sometimes when we really want to make change, we have to step into the unknown. It might not be totally unknown, because other people have done that before us, but we're doing something which perhaps our friends, our family, people around us are not doing. And so there's a little bit, what will people think, and so that's why we need to be a little bit internal about this as we take those pauses, and actually get in touch with our deeper feelings, our spiritual reality within ourselves, so that we can gain the strength to do what our conscience is telling us to do, because we actually know what we have to do. And it's okay, but no, we need those quiet, still moments to be in touch with our inner selves, our inner feelings, and to take that strength to to change. And I really see more and more people doing that.
So quiet moments, look inside, and that will help us to overcome the blockages and really do what's necessary, what we understand, what has to be done.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Thanks very much. Lucy, when we deal, it's a bit a similar question what I asked to Maureen. When we deal with food systems, its production, its processing, its even eating habits, we deal with the mindset of the people and local cultures also. And if you see, you travel around the world, everywhere is a different food culture, different habits, which is developed over hundreds of years. So that's a tough nut to crack. You know, bring a big change to the people. How you get into the people's mind, how you bring change and make people aware and really change the mindset of people. You know, what's your secret?
I think.
Do you have some psychologists which guide you, for example?
No. I think you can't, or you shouldn't make people do anything.
Yeah.
People should do something because they believe it's the right thing and they feel that is, you know, that is something that fits within their belief system or their values. I mean, we often talk about values. So I think recognizing the diversity of the food system, the diversity of solutions within the food system, which is incredibly complicated and incredibly complex, is absolutely key. A lot of the reasons why we have the challenges we have is because we've tried to simplify the food system. We've tried to make it fit. We've tried to make it fit into one mold. We've tried to tell it the way it should be rather than celebrate the diversity. So I always feel that really we need to, it's not just biodiversity of animals and creatures and plants and organisms, but it's diversity of solutions, of different ways of eating and different ways of being. And we should definitely celebrate that and we should support it. But I think having people, rather than telling people that they need to adopt a certain solution, we should be asking people to look to their values, and to make decisions based on their values and based on their values and love rather than fear. I always try to make decisions based on love rather than fear, because when we make decisions based on fear, we make decisions which are harmful to many people, to beings, to the planet. If we make decisions based on love and we bring our full selves to work rather than leave that at the door when we go to work in the food system or whichever sector we work in, then we kind of make decisions which can be a bit harmful. And I think part of the reason we're in the situation we're in is that we've made decisions based on fear and we've just tried to make everything conform, make everything sort of easy to deal with, simplify it. So celebrate diversity, make decisions based on love rather than fear, and then I think we solve all the problems.
So we have to do a lot of education and raise the awareness of people so they understand.
Yeah, or give them the agency to make these decisions, and give them the agency to bring their values to work, because this is, the food system is a job for a lot of people, whether you're a farmer, whether you're a buyer of food, whether you're whether you're a manufacturer, whether you're a consumer or an eater, or a person within the food system. I think giving people that, making people realize that actually it's okay to make decisions based on their values, and that's not in conflict with business. It's not in conflict with making the world work. It's actually it's a positive thing.
Human values, taking care of planet, taking care of society, taking care of the other.
Yeah,
sounds great.
Exactly.
Fantastic.
Exactly.
And I think once people begin to do that, they feel good within themselves, I think that's a key as well.
Lovely inspirations I heard in this short session. Time is moving, and I would be very glad if Maureen can do a little meditation, fantastic meditation with us, and sort of guide us to bring science and spirituality together, so it becomes a fruitful union for a synthesis for a better future.
So let us sit quietly for a moment and understand that yes, we have the world around us in all its complexities, and all its variety. And we have the world within, the world of our thoughts and feelings, the world of our consciousness. And the two come together and impact each other. But yet I need to deepen my awareness of my inner world to bring the qualities and values of my inner world to help the progress of the outer world. And when I go inside, I find stillness, silence, and peace. Peace brings harmony. Peace brings clarity. Peace brings strength. Peace enables me to bring the transformative power of love into my life. So as I move through life, let everything that I think, that I do, be empowered by the peace and the love within. And then the inner world and the outer world will be in harmony once again. Thank you.
What a lovely meditation, Maureen. Thanks very much. And jointly bring science and spirituality together for a better future. This brings us close to the end of our panel discussion. Thanks very much to our speakers. Lucy, thanks very much for coming and sharing your insights. Thanks, Maureen, for being with us and for the lovely meditation. And thanks also very much to our sponsors and patrons. And also thanks to all the volunteers, a lot of people behind the camera who make this transmission, this studio possible. When you look on the other side of the camera, there's a lot of lights and a lot of cables and a lot of things going on. And thanks very much to all the helpers. And please join us tomorrow for another session at the same time of our Climate Wisdom Studio. Please look at our webpage www.echo.brahmakumaris.org/live. You will find more information about our Climate Studio. Last not least, thanks very much for our global audience to staying with us. And I learned a lot today, and I hope you have been inspired and learned also about food systems and how to bring science and spirituality together. Please stay with us. We show a short video afterwards, and then we commence the program with part number 2, how spirituality and science can be a solution for climate problems. Thanks very much. Welcome to our Climate Wisdom Studio live from Baku in Azerbaijan. We bring together experts from science, spirituality and politics to explore new solutions for the unfolding climate crisis. I'm Golo Pilz and I will be the moderator for today's session, and we will explore the connection between spirituality and science in climate solution. It's day 3 of this COP29, and at present the climate summit is going on, and heads of states from around the world are making their case for more funding to tackle climate change. This COP is also dubbed the Finance COP, and the world's top multilateral banks have pledged more climate funds up to $100 billion per year. But if we see that the damage is already much higher, it's a question if that will be enough. Meanwhile, latest science reports say that global warming is accelerating and the impacts are unfolding much faster than expected. For example, methane gas emissions have risen much higher than expected, and the highest rate since they are on record. Countries also gave the go-ahead to carbon credit quality standards, which are critical to the UN-backed global carbon market that would fund green projects. I'm glad to have 2 experts with me today to shed more light on these rather complicated issues. I have with me Isabel Pereira. You hold a Master in Law and Human Rights and have worked for over 20 years with NGOs and international organizations on social justice and humanitarian affairs. Currently, you are the coordinator of religion and environment of ISER, the Institute of Studies of Religion, and that's located in Brazil, if I'm right.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, welcome very much to our session. I'm also glad to have Maureen Goodman with me. You are the Program Director of the Brahma Kumaris in United Kingdom, and you have attended several climate change conferences and have a deep interest in the spiritual and ethical dimensions of climate change. And I know you just come from the UN Biodiversity Conference in Colombia. Since long, you have been involved in the interreligious dialogue and have represented the Brahma Kumaris on many occasions. Welcome, Maureen.
Thank you.
Let us start our conversation, and I have the first question for Isabel. Please tell us a bit what ISER is doing and what brings you actually to the COP.
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thank you for this invitation. I'm very glad to be here with you today. ISER, is that how we call it in Portuguese? Because
ISER,
of
okay.
Brazil. But it's the Institute of Studies on Religion, as you said. It works in Brazil. The base of it is in Rio de Janeiro. It's a Brazilian civil society organization, a secular one, and it was founded in 1970. So it's been working for 54 years now. And it has the idea that religion affects society. So we must understand how religion works in all of the societies in Brazil, so that we can, for instance, talk about very important topics such as human rights, social justice, environment, and most importantly for us at ISER, strengthen democracy. Since the 1990s, ISER worked with environmental issues and its relationship with religion. And in 1992, when we had the convention, the UN convention in 1992, there was a big gathering, a vigil, an inter-religious vigil in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro by then. And ISER was one of the organizers of these vigils. And from then on, we did a lot of studies, of training programs that was about this intersection of environment and religion. And in 2015, we founded the Faith in Climate Initiative because of the Paris Agreement and also the Laudato Si movement, where we engage religious communities in facing the climate crisis.
So you also deal with indigenous communities in Brazil?
This Faith in Climate initiative, it really works with religious leaders and also representatives from original populations such as indigenous peoples. And also in Brazil we have the Quilombola people that are the Afro-descendant traditional communities. So yes, we do have these very important representatives in our initiative.
Are you advising to the government in your capacity?
We do have a lot of studies that can have this effect, but not formally.
Okay. It sounds a very interesting activity.
Yes.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Maureen, I know that the Brahma Kumaris is quite active here at the climate conference in the interreligious dialogue, and there's also a pavilion where we have a couple of programs. Please share a bit what's going on in this interreligious dialogue and how you're trying to get more impact.
Thank you. Yes, the Faith Pavilion is a very, very good thing to have. It makes the whole voice of faith more visible to the people who are participating. It's a place where we can gather, and the Brahma Kumaris are one of the supporters of the Faith Pavilion, along with many other.
We have a helper also from our side.
Yes, that's also true. We have a young person who's been helping at the Faith Pavilion. It's very important that the voice of faith is heard, because faith has a connection with the local communities in a very profound way. And within our faith traditions, there's a lot of wisdom as to how to work with the earth, how to preserve our biodiversity, and so on. And so, and I remember one executive secretary from a former biodiversity conference saying, it's so important to read your scriptures and understand, otherwise you won't have food on the table. So very important. And so we're part of that, and we're also part of the Interfaith Liaison Committee, which has been around, I think, maybe about 15 years, something like that. And in fact, one of our Brahma Kumaris sisters is co-chair of that, together with a reverend from the World Council of Churches. And every year they create a call to the governments. So they consult with all the faith communities. And this year they've prepared a call to the governments. And the preamble of it is saying that we call for decisions to be made on the basis of honesty, compassion, and trust. And then it also speaks about attitudes towards climate finance and takes up various topics. And so that will be presented to the Executive Secretary of the Climate Change Conference at some point within these 2 weeks. And so over the years, this has built up, and the activities have built up, the number of activities, and it's been these last 2 years that we've actually had a faith pavilion, and very grateful to the governments and also the Muslim Council of Elders who were able to sponsor that and make it possible. And so yes, these are some of the things that we've been doing, and the events in the faith pavilion are many and varied. There are observances of silence, of meditation, because actually we have to remember how important the power of prayer is, and also different aspects of how faith can help communities, help with women's empowerment, with Indigenous people and all the different constituencies. So faith plays a part, and we're trying to raise that voice as loud as possible.
Great. It's great to hear that Brahma Kumaris is part of that, and that regular meditation in the morning and evening is also going on, I heard.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so we are also serving the subtle vibration at the climate conference and try to empower the delegates also through prayer and positive thoughts. I think that's also something which is more and more appreciated by the delegates. Thanks very much for sharing our collaboration. That brings me back to Isabel. You study religion, and I assume you have a quite good overview. Can and should religion play a more significant role in mobilizing the society to act in view of the emerging climate disaster? I think 70% or 80% of the world population follow one or the other faith.
84%.
84%.
And over 90% in Africa.
Over 90%, 84% of the world population follow one or the other faith. And for example, you mentioned also some years ago, Laudatio Si was published by the Pope. And it's all about preserving and taking care of our home, of our common home. So what has to happen at this COP, and should religion play a more significant role? What is your idea about that?
We believe so. In Brazil, for instance, is 90% of the population believes in God. So it's very important for the Brazilian population faith. It's very important for the Brazilian population, and I know this worldwide is the same, as you said it. And for us, one very important part of strategic and strong and bold decisions in this kind of events come from pressure from civil society and also from big mobilization of civil society. And for us, this doesn't happen if you don't really know how to engage civil society. And for us, we know that science plays a very important role in this, but it's not enough, because it doesn't go to the heart to the people. So, and also it doesn't really, like we know that science has been telling us for the past 40 years that we have climate change coming on, and now we have this big emergency, this big crisis. So we understand that now we need more than that. Science is not enough. We need a lot of information. We still need many more developments in science to help, but we need to touch the heart of people. And that we know that religion and faith can play this role. And also we understand that when people discuss these matters, or they have this information coming from their religious communities or from their faith communities, it's better for them to trust it. They trust it more when they have this information coming from there, because it's a place where they feel welcome, where they do have people that they love and they also trust. So we do believe so.
That's fantastic. So it's just a question that we all join hands, that all organizations of faith join hands. It's an incredible power. Then 84% of the world population are connected. You have a belief system, it's an incredible power when it comes together.
And just a compliment, when we're talking about this COP and the next one, COP30, for instance, there are a lot of organizations and also faith communities that are coming together nationally in Brazil. And of course, we want to be a part of a very big international group of faith organizations that come together and do a very big mobilization there in COP30. I think this will be a very important part, and we are calling for an inter-religious vigil there in Brazil, and also a lot of other activities are going on. So this will be very important to have the international faith community together there also.
The next climate conference will be in Belém?
In Belém, yes,
Belém,
in the Amazon.
In the Amazon, which is affected by climate change quite dramatically.
Dramatically, yes. We have been having droughts, very, very serious and extreme droughts for the past 2 years there.
Imagine in the Amazon, which we always consider to be the green lungs of the planet Earth.
It's very sad. It's really very sad, and the population there is thriving a lot this past 2 years.
Okay. So that's a very interesting answer, and this gives also hope, about the power of the gathering and the power of the world community, So we just have to all unite, which is a bit of a tricky story also. Maureen, our topic is today spirituality and science. They have to find a solution for the climate crisis. In the Brahma Kumaris, we talk a lot about science and silence. And silence plays a very important role for us also in meditation. Can you explain a bit what's the power of silence and how it maybe empower science and guide science to find the right pathway for the solution?
Thank you. But just want to comment that I know they're preparing in the Faith Pavilion already, thinking about I'm sure they've been in communication, so
Yes.
we're looking forward to that collaboration very much. The power of silence is actually a very great power, and it's the power of your inner world. It's the power of consciousness. It's the power of awareness. But what kind of awareness? A spiritual awareness, an awareness of our original identity. We see each other, and when we look at the external, yes, we see different cultures, different ethnicities, and so on. But I think we all know that these differences are really only skin deep. And we may look at all the many different cultures that we have, but yet there are many common things that we share. And I remember that years and years ago we did do a project that was asking people to share their vision of a better world. It was in connection with a UN project. And when people shared their vision, you know, they didn't talk about, well, I want a big house, a small house. Everybody wanted the same values. They wanted peace, they wanted love, respect, tolerance, togetherness, kind of things we've been talking about. And that tells us that that is actually part of human nature, or you can say part of the nature of the soul within. So yeah, we play many roles, and so in a way we have many identities, right? You know, from morning till night. But there has to be a constant within, and that's where the power of silence lies. When we become aware of our spiritual identity, and that we have many spiritual treasures within, of peace, of love, of wisdom, of joy. And when we focus on those, our mind becomes very still. And so the world around us no longer has such an impact on us. But the power within is developing. And this is the power of silence, and it becomes stronger and stronger. And you can also call it the power of prayer. I mean, it's there in all our...
Maybe also creative potential.
Creative potential, but it's there in all our traditions. And this is a great transformative power because it's using these original qualities that are actually eternal in nature, and they can't be diminished by the external influences. So this is the power of silence. And so when this kind of power comes into the world, then many things change. And hearts are touched, we come together, but even the very elements of matter respond to this power of silence and are calmed down.
And science will get guidance also.
And science will get guidance
to go in the right direction.
Yes.
Very interesting how you describe this inner world, these inner qualities. When you go into them, the mind comes down and goes in silence, and then the power is growing, the inner power is growing, and then this inner power can go to the outside and start doing its good work.
Yes.
It's a beautiful analogy.
Yes.
Thanks very much, Maureen, for sharing.
Thanks.
This brings me back to Isabel, and it's a bit more a personal question, the tricky one. We discussed it before. And it seems humanity lost a bit its path. And it seems also we lost a bit connection to the divine, you know, like without real orientation. I mean, we all go for latest gadgets and for latest technology, but that's not the real thing. We seem to have lost our compass. And we also crossed several tipping points in climate. And it seems humanity by itself will have problems to solve the crisis. And you study religion a lot. And can you imagine an intervention from above? Help from God, maybe? What's your idea about that? Share with us your insight.
So this is a very tricky question. I'm not going to speak as a person who studied religion, but it was very interesting that I talked to a colleague that worked with me, Sarah, and she said she thinks that's a simple question. Of course we have help from the divine, because the divine has already helped us. And I say, okay, explain it to me. Because I was thinking a lot about this. And I was really thinking. And then she said, well, God gave us the ability of consciousness, of loving, of respect. So we have to use it. So I think that this was for me a very interesting way of looking at that we have already have all that's needed for us to do the change. And so this divine power is already acting in us and has already acted, and we just have to use it. And also what we were discussing is that for this to happen, we really have to bring these values and change systems, because otherwise we won't be able to really change the crisis that we are living. And so I think for me, I agreed with her, and I think this would be my answer for this question.
That there is already help from above, and in future more may be going to happen.
Exactly, that we need to use whatever has been given to us already.
Yeah. In Brahma Kumaris, we practice a lot of yoga or meditation, and an old Sanskrit explanation for yoga is connection with the divine for self-enlightenment.
Yes.
So I also remember that you spoke about silence, and in silence you maybe can find also the connection with God, the union with God, which is very empowering and very comforting also in these times of crisis, and gives people an anchor, of stability. Because when I was at the COP today, I a little bit heard in this pavilion, then I heard a little bit in that pavilion. It was very confusing messages everywhere. Everyone was very busy, and then I said a little bit, went into silence, and I said, okay, my anchor is my spirituality, is my divine connection with the light. And the moment I did it, I focused, and everything sort of relaxed for me, and this outside overload of information didn't really impact me that much, and I could really feel how I could change it and give power and love and compassion to all the delegates also on the other side, So I feel also, as you said, that help is there, and we just all have to join hands, and then things will move in the right direction, and God's plan will unfold, Wonderful. That was very inspirational talk, and now, Maureen, we're coming to the end of our little conversation of science and spirituality, and maybe you can guide us for a couple of minutes in a meditation and let heal science and spirituality, bring them together so they create a beautiful future.
So let us prepare for a journey within. We see how our thoughts are so often connected to the world around us. We think about what we see or what we hear. But then there comes a moment where we go inside and leave the influence of the external world and be in touch with the inner world of the self. I become aware of my eternal identity that is constant, unchanging, and in that identity is the power of peace. I am a being of peace. And in this state of mind, in this state of peace, I can go beyond and connect with the source of peace, with the divine. I feel that divine peace washing over me, bringing me comfort and divine love, healing me. And as I feel myself, the love and peace of the divine overflows through me into the atmosphere around me, into the world, to bring peace, to bring healing, to bring a better future for all of us. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Maureen, for this powerful meditation, bringing science and spirituality together to find solution for our climate crisis. This brings us to the end of our discussion, of our interview, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I would like to thank very much Isabel coming and sharing your insights, and thanks very much, Maureen, also for enlightening us.
Thank you.
And I would like to thank also to our patrons and to our sponsors, and also to the many volunteers and helpers behind the camera, which make this live studio possible. Please join us tomorrow for another session of our Wisdom Studio live from Baku, Azerbaijan. And for details, please look at our webpage, echo.brahmakumaris.org/live. You will find the program there and all the other sessions. Last not least, thanks very much to you, our audience, our global audience, for staying with us, and we all hope you took some inspiration and some knowledge from this session. Goodbye and good night from Baku in Azerbaijan, and maybe we play a short video after this session. Goodbye.